Joining us for analysis on testimony from the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry thus far is Political Analyst, Professor Susan Booysen from Wits University. Good afternoon, Professor. Thank you very much for joining us here on Point. Quite a lot that we have heard from all of those that have testified thus far. Unfortunately, today having to quickly adjourn because the current witness on the stand, that's General Khumalo, taking ill. Just perhaps let's start with yesterday's testimony. General Khumalo took us through WhatsApp conversations between Kat Matlala, who is an attempted murder accused, as well as Brown Mokhotsi, who is considered an associate of Minister Senzo Mchunu. Your views on just most of that communication that we saw that almost placed Brown Mokhotsi as somebody who was able to at least offer some level of shielding or protection through his information and proximity to a minister to an individual such as Kat Matlala?
Yes, indeed. That was a profound change in pace in this commission, where we saw things move from more general assertions and suggestions that things may be the case and personal opinions, interpretations, to some concrete information that was very revealing about the relationship between Matlala and Mokhotsi, and with the implied content in there, not on the lines, but between the lines, but very explicitly between the lines, on why I might add, of ministerial Senzo Mchunu probably be this Minister of Police on special leave, probably being implicated, and in a sense that Mokhotsi really could suggest that he has got the ear. He could show through his exchanges that he did have access to information, very rapid, high-level access to information, and that he could trade, whether he was just an information peddler or he was acting specifically with the consent of the minister. Those remain to be seen. But that was a very important change on content and pace in the deliberations, and very important too. At a few places one could hear that in the WhatsApp exchanges or Signal exchanges, that also came to light, that many of the exchanges were on Signal platform, that there was not yet sufficient information available, that the answers could just be given that not at this stage. So perhaps this postponement, or suspension of deliberations of the Commission for today, could also give those teams additional time to go and find the missing information.
But you start off by saying that this was a shift in pace insofar as the Commission is concerned, that here we're now starting to see tangible evidence in the form of that WhatsApp communication. Because just before he shared the communication, General Khumalo had stated that at least it was his view that the attempt to disband the PKTT was due to a level of infiltration of the force by some of these criminal cartels. And then here what we saw with Brown Mokhotsi in his communication, do you believe that it does support that kind of a statement, that here Mokhotsi played a role of a go-between between political actors and some alleged criminal actors?
Yes. It certainly was a lot of evidence of a go-between, but also very definitely very important information about the nature of the operations that we see at this very high level in South African Police Service, in SABC, and in crime intelligence, a crucial spoke in the wheel of national security. And that was probably one of the most important accumulative effects for state of the deliberations and what has been delivered so far that we could see. And that was how these different parts start hanging together between information peddlers and go-betweens, with access possibly to the ministers, with a range of mentions of multiple important people in crime intelligence, in counterintelligence, with some references to deliberations at some point moving to in-camera format. but overall how all this information was kind of starting to come together as to the state of disarray in security and security in policing and criminal justice systems in South Africa. And I think that is a very disconcerting state of affairs, because that goes to the heart of state security and stability in state apparatuses. And it is not a pretty picture that is emerging as to how this all hangs together and what the state of the affairs is in state security services in South Africa.
No, it's most certainly quite concerning. But if we had to play devil's advocate for a little bit here, Professor, and preempt the response of the minister, could it be possible for the minister to come and say that here you've got a Brown Mokhotsi in communication that has somewhat overstated his proximity to him or overstated their relationship for his own nefarious reasons? Would that suffice in this instance, where he says, this is a man who overpronounces my name in circles where he thinks he can possibly benefit?
That is always a big possibility that may be the case. It is almost, one can almost take it for granted that Mr. Ntunu will not, if it's appropriate to call him minister when he's on special leave at this stage.
It is a difficult one.
Will definitely come with defense, and that is probably one of the defenses that could be expected, because there would be no justification in him retaining or being returned to his job if he would just agree with what has been said so far. So whatever his exact defense will be, certainly overstaying welcome by a close associate would be one of them. And he would also then, in the process, hopefully be able to explain his previous contradictory remarks on his type of relationship with Brown Mokhotsi. So, yes, it certainly it is greatly anticipated how Susan Booysen will be able to explain this away, because it may be a person who just overrepresented his relationship with the minister, but still it would have to be explained how a person like that then would have access to very high top level security information, as we have seen has already been emerging here.
Well, certainly, at least his appearance at the commission is much anticipated. Professor, thank you very much for joining us on the program.